Hello there. I'm Dr. Roger Teal, Senior Minister of Mile High Church in Denver, Colorado, and a co-founder of the Association for Global New Thought. I'll be the moderator of this Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life panel during this glorious Global Oneness Day. And this panel will powerfully address the wheel of co-creation, currently transitioning our communities and ultimately our world towards social systems aligned with universal values that bring harmony and unity to humanity and that serves the flourishing of all life. And so the panel will also talk about visionary leaders who've been involved with a 12-month program co-founded by Humanities Team and the Foundation for Conscious Evolution. And so Barbara Marks Hubbard, Barbara Fields, Anna Marie Peters, and Juan Carlos Caitan are guests on this panel with me here today. And I'm going to go right into panel member introductions, and I'll introduce them one at a time, and then we'll go straight to our panel discussion. Barbara Marks Hubbard. Oh, I love this lady. I've known her for so many years. Barbara Marks Hubbard has been called the voice for conscious evolution of our time by Deepak Chopra and is the subject of Neil Donald Walsh's book, The Mother of Invention. A prolific author, visionary, social innovator, evolutionary thinker, and educator. She is co-founder and chairperson of the Foundation for Conscious Evolution. She is the producer and narrator of the award-winning documentary series Humanity Ascending, A New Way Through Together, and has partnered with the Shift Network as a global ambassador for the Conscious Evolution movement. A shift from evolution by chance toward evolution by choice. And along with Shift, she launched the Agents of Conscious Evolution training and formed a global team to co-produce a global multimedia event entitled Birth 2012, Co-Creating a Planetary Shift in Time. And that was held on December 22nd of 2012, a historic turning point event, awakening the social, spiritual, scientific, and technological potential of humanity. So welcome to Global Oneness Day, Barbara. And now I also introduced Dr. Barbara Fields. She is the Executive Director of the Association for Global New Thought, co-founder and project director of the Gandhi King Seasons for Peace and Nonviolence, also program director in the past for the Parliament of the World's Religions, the Centennial Celebration in Chicago. And she's co-founder and project director of the Synthesis Dialogues, both 1, 2, 3, and 4 with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. She's coordinator of the U.S.-based Omni-Local Initiatives for Harvard-based project on negotiations and the Abraham Walk Initiative in the Middle East, program director of the International Buddhist Christian Theological Encounter out of Purdue University and the Lilly Foundation, and delegate to the UNESCO Seminar on Religion and Peace. So welcome to Global Oneness Day, Barbara, who we'll call B2. Anna Marie Peters has served in a number of ways as part of the Humanities Team Worldwide Core Team and Worldwide Support Team. She's team leader for the launch of the Global Oneness Declaration in 2008 and playing a facilitating role in Humanities Team's Spiritual Leadership Awards for Archbishop Desmond Tutu in 2009 and the late Mr. Nelson Mandela in 2014. In March 2013, she was involved in the launch of Humanities Team's Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life initiative. She is an expert in Ubuntu, and she also serves as the Humanities Team's country coordinator for South Africa. Welcome to Global Oneness Day, Anna Marie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Teal. It's my great privilege to be here with you and everyone else. Thank you, and a happy Global Oneness Day, everyone.
Yes. And finally, Juan Carlos Caitan is a social artist with skills focused on global collective intelligence, leadership development, social networks, and organizational transformation. He holds a master's in leadership and sustainability and has extensive experience in business and social entrepreneurship in Mexico and abroad. His focus is to develop new technologies and opportunities for social innovation which will enable us to operate from a holistic paradigm of interconnection, unity, and interdependence. He is the founder of 11 Mexico, an NGO that's fostering collective actions for social well-being, and is also a member of the Hague Center. And also welcome to Global Oneness Day, Juan Carlos.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, so we've got a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to go straight into our conversation. And first of all, Barbara B1, Barbara Mark-Zubbard, can you get us started by sharing about the Wheel of Co-Creation for those who might not be familiar with it? And, of course, the wheel is the basis for Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life, which is the name of this panel.
Yes. The Wheel of Co-Creation is actually a process to connect the separate parts of any community to make a whole greater than the sum of its parts. And each sector of the wheel is a basic function like health, education, economics, science and technology, government, environment. And at the hub of the wheel is the heart, is spirit of evolution and creation, is resonance and oneness. And it's a process whereby people enter the wheel, they come into the heart together, and then they look at what's emergent, creative, and new for a sustainable, viable humanity in whatever sector of the wheel they're interested in. And then the next part is we see how each part can help the other, you know, like how health can help education, which can help media, which can help governance, because no function can succeed on its own without the rest of the parts connected. And what we did here in Monterrey, Mexico, just now, I just got off the stage with 12 leaders, such as Justin Rosenstein of Asana and Facebook, and people like Sandra de Castro Buffington and Bruce Lipton, the beyond belief innovator of epigenetics. We had outstanding Claudio Naranjo in education, in science, in media, in arts. And what we discovered, as you do whenever you do this, is that each part can better achieve what it wants to when it's part of the whole. And Irvin Laszlo and I were both like the elders supporting this as a global mission. And Irvin spoke of the need for understanding science itself as a form of super coherence on a universal scale. So instead of the materialistic science that has created so much of modern culture, there's the emerging science of wholeness, of connectivity, of oneness. So the Wheel of Co-Creation, the 12 Spheres of Life as it's called here, is actually a model of how the universe works. And what Cristina Gonzalez said, who is the person who is the director of the Encounter in Human Values here at Monterrey, Mexico, she said, now we go to the whole world, Barbara. In other words, this pioneering woman, Cristina, who had never heard of a Wheel of Co-Creation 2 years ago, has turned a very major event open to it. And we just had an interview just before this, and I said, what did you think, Cristina? And she said, I'm going to tell you in the press interview. She said, now we go to the whole world. And you can't imagine how that touched my heart, because this is a very pioneering, traditional woman, spiritually oriented. And we had about 6,000 people out there, and they say 80,000 people were on live stream. And Juan Carlos is a superb coordinator of this. He's been my total partner in doing it. And we know that we are initiating here what we're calling a 5-year call for co-creation. This is a movement for co-creation. And because we're at a moment when we could lead to destruction of the world by misuse of power, it is the exact moment when we can shift the tide by connecting to co-create. So I'm saying to everyone, let's take a 5-year opportunity to inaugurate the emerging culture of co-creation. Thank you.
Well, that's beautiful, and I feel the momentum here, because I know you've worked with this model of the Wheel of Co-Creation for a number of years, and It's so beautiful to see it really coming forth in its leadership capacity. And for the listeners who may not be as familiar with it, if you can imagine a wheel, much like you saw when you signed into this panel, there are the 12 spheres are the arts, economics, education, environment, governance, health, infrastructure, justice, media, relations, science, and spirituality. And then if you can imagine a spiral, the spiral of ever-evolving human awareness lifting this wheel, that's the synthesis that makes this such a powerful model. And so I wanted to turn this over to some of the other panelists. Perhaps first, Anna Marie, would you be willing to share how your work relates to the wheel, the unique contribution that you and your work are making?
Such a great privilege to be here and to witness the powerful stuff that's happening out in the world through all of these great leaders. It's really fantastic. So yes, I must say, it is rather like a dream, thinking back to 2007 when we gathered in Portugal as a Humanities Team Global Council, when we confirmed, if I can call it that, our vows for oneness. And we said that we wanted to play a real impactful role in awakening the world to oneness. It was during this time that the Oneness Declaration was born, together with our dream that one day we would have a Global Oneness Day. And so whilst we are talking about the Oneness Declaration, we had a goal, as you may have picked up on the social media, to reach the 100,000 signature mark before or on Global Oneness Day. And this morning, I'm excited to say, we passed this goal. Perfect timing by all of us. Thanks to everyone for making this happen. But, we have to stall a little bit on this, because if we think that there are 7,000 billion people on Earth, and oneness being who we are, we reckon that millions can still sign the declaration, right? So the Oneness Declaration is central to Global Oneness Day, and therefore we always make sure to give it its central space. For those tuned in from Monterey and from all over the world who have not read the Oneness Declaration, please do so and sign and share it if it resonates with you. You can find it on our worldwide website. And click on Archbishop Desmond Tutu, okay? So back to history. It was during our visit in Portugal, Dr. Thiel, that we started entertaining the whole Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life idea and the Wheel of Co-Creation. We knew then that it was something that we would pursue in more earnestly sometime down the line, okay? So it's amazing to stand here today and to be part of this great Global Oneness Day gathering that Barbara, Mark Sabbath, and other wonderful leaders are involved with, all part of the Wheel of Co-Creation and of oneness and of the 12 Spheres of Life. We are doing incredible things around the Wheel of Co-Creation, which is what we are all here to learn about today. I wish you all a wonderful and successful gathering over there in Monterey. But we're talking about evolution here, right? So as a movement, we have give ourselves the opportunity to grow emotionally and spiritually from that point onward. Now, when we decided that this was something that we felt attracted to, we also had to go to our own growing, because this is what evolution is all about. We had to come to a point where our own oneness became more and more embodied and not something that was only talked about. So instead of oneness being a pie in the sky thing, we wanted to start making it real. And we ourselves and our followers wanted to know how this oneness works in the different sectors of society that we have created for ourselves. And we were inspired through all of this, through what we have come to learn about Barbara and Mark Sabbath. And we also wanted to tap into the unique qualities of each of the spheres. What Barbara says is that the Wheel of Co-Creation is really a model. It's really how the universe works. So we wanted to know more about this, and we wanted to become this consciously. So it was in the year 2012 that we felt naturally drawn to take the next steps in this regard, although we had no idea of how this was going to play out. It took us a whole year to work out the launch of our Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life initiative. I remember Barbara was very excited about our efforts and our intentions. Thank you, Barbara. Bless you. And we are so grateful that she has been willing to work with us since the beginning, and how she has helped us to grow into who we are and what to do. So without going into a lot of detail, when we put our initiative together, we made a summary of what Barbara was really saying and what she was suggesting. And we also looked at what Ken Wilber and the integral approach was saying. And we were also interested in this whole idea of what it is that make people and communities thrive. All of this obviously together with our own main statements, our own aims and goals, and what we have come to learn about life, and that we look at life in a dear way. So in 2013, we launched our Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life initiative that consists of monthly conference calls, each month focusing on the sphere of the month in alphabetical order, inviting a leader in the field to share his or her thoughts about the sphere, and sharing what is emerging and what works. People are also able to see how the different spheres are interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent, and serve one another. So also once a week on Thursdays, we do a Facebook posting on the specific sphere of the month. And I must say that all of this continues to do so much for raising consciousness for the energy and the activities in the different spheres. All of this has led to a wonderful teammate, Janet Gunn, who some of you may know, creating a Facebook page for each of the different spheres where people are able to learn and to connect. So finally, the one thing that stands out for me, apart from the hope, the possibility, and the life that the wheel of co-creation, oneness, and the 12 spheres of life bring, I always experience in this community how we learn from and strengthen one another, and the love that is ever present. So we are very grateful for the long period of time that the Association for Global New Thought, specifically Barbara Fields, who is also here with us today, that we've been able to work together in a partnership with everyone on this monthly program. So again, thank you to you, Barbara Marks-Hubbard, and to Barbara Fields. And with that, as a brief interview of what it is that we do in the humanities team to advance this whole idea of co-creation, over to you back again, Dr. Thiel. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Barbara Fields, affectionately called B2. How about your work and its relationship to this wheel?
Thanks, Roger. Well, I certainly don't. I don't have probably as much detail about the wheel of co-creation and the 12 spheres of life as B1 and Anna Marie have shared with you. So I'm asking myself, what perspective could I bring to the conversation that would be helpful? And Roger, as you know, the two of us just returned from Salt Lake City, Utah, where we were at the Parliament of the World's Religions last week.
Yes.
And what I realized is that we're very privileged, blessed really, to be involved in a movement on the planet of consciousness that gives us freedom that many people, freedom to explore and to convene and to think and to dream, gather together in a very high-minded and high-spirited way. That not all people on the planet are really able to participate in at this time. And when we were at the Parliament of Religions, there were about 9,000 people from all the different world religious traditions that may be coming from a different perspective. Roger, did you notice also that was a very different environment than sometimes the conversation that we're engaged in as participants in the consciousness movement?
Oh, yeah. You can see that we're leaning into this whole concept of oneness and co-creation, and I'm not sure that it's been seeded as fully in some of the other sectors that we were witnessing there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point that I wanted to bring here is we're in a sense of it's a bit of a culture discrepancy on our own planet that I would say that I think the statistic is that 95% of the world's population would identify themselves with one or another traditional religious faith. And that because many of us actually, we of course, you and I, Roger, are proponents of the New Thought tradition, but that's a very atypical religious tradition as far as the world's fundamental traditions are concerned. And it's kind of an eye-opener to realize that much of the planet is coming from still a kind of embeddedness in a different paradigm that, although everyone would say that they value harmony and oneness and reconciliation, their immediate lifestyles and their immediate practices are much closer to issues that involve direct experiences with poverty and violence and warfare, hate crimes, income inequity, the sorts of issues that have to be addressed on a social basis in an intelligent and compassionate way before we can go on to have the conversation about love and oneness and unity, which of course is the ultimate goal. But I think what I wanted to seed into this conversation today is, before you go on, is that we have to realize how much of the planet outside of people listening today are really coming from a different perspective. And I think I want to ask the question, what is our response to that situation?
Yes, we've got a lot of opportunities. I was going to say work ahead of us, but a lot of opportunities to take some transformational concepts to our brothers and sisters around the planet and in the various sectors of the wheel, especially spirituality, that can awaken us to the synergistic possibilities of addressing the great challenges that we face on the planet, and how to stimulate new awarenesses rather than reverting back to old processes, some of which are part of the problem themselves. And I'm sure we'll be able to lean into that. Thanks so much for that, Barbara, because I do think that that's where the rubber meets the road in this whole thing. And before we, though, do open that very provocative question up, I want to give the floor to Juan Carlos so that he can share his perspectives and also his work in this area.
Yes, thank you. Well, we are doing a lot of work around the wheel of co-creation. I've been using it since the year 2000, and then when I met Barbara in 2012, we started working together. And I've been doing this in Mexico. And the piece that I see and I've been experiencing when we bring the wheel at the community level with people in different levels, from the business, we have brought this into the leaders of Monterrey, the business leaders, and we have brought this also at the community level in poor communities. And everybody, when they experience the wheel, they experience unity. They get to see the full picture, and they understand how none of them have the ability to bring an integral solution, but only when they can cooperate with others, that's when they can make it. So we are bringing the wheel into action, and our goal is to take it even further. We want to take it to the city halls. We want to take it to the business leaders. We're bringing it to the community level, and then the vision we are having now is that all of this needs to properly connect. We need to have an online platform that needs to be at the level of what the wheel is proposing. That means we need to build new architectures on how do we make decisions, on how do we collaborate, and how we exchange our wealth. And that's the way we are using the wheel, as an invitation for people to co-create a new world. It's not, we're shifting the call to changing the world to co-creating the world. And this is a more unifying invitation, because many people feel threatened by all this activism of people that want to make something different, and the status quo feels very threatened by that. So what we are doing with the wheel is making an invitation to co-create it together, government, business leaders, and civil society together. And that's the vision we're bringing for the wheel. And we are so happy of what just happened here in Monterrey, because we have right now different leaders. This is not finished. We're having dinner with all of them, in which we are bringing this code that Barbara is bringing to the center of the table. How do we get a critical mass of people co-creating collectively on strategic actions by 2020? And we are not pretending in any way to lead this. We are just setting the conditions in the system for society to have greater tools and processes to self-organize, to self-correct, and to self-generate the innovations that are needed. So this is what is emerging. So it is really, we are so enthusiastic about what is happening here in Monterrey. I believe this is a threshold. And then we want to eventually, perhaps something I would like to share, we have a little bit of a surprise. And if we can manage to have, at 11:11, there is a community of people joining using a platform which is called Amplifield. I'm going to post it on the chat window of the conference here. So some people want to show us how many people all around the world is uniting in collective actions, and we can see this live. And well, this is an invitation. Just if we have the possibility to, I am posting it into the chat window of this conference, and perhaps we can start getting into the heart space and observing how it is that when our intentions are connected, the whole noosphere is being influenced by our thoughts and by our actions. So, well, that's the work I am involved with Barbara in bringing the wheel into action.
I just want to say one word to build on what Juan Carlos said about the noosphere, meaning new sphere or mind sphere, which is the new social media of the world, a new nervous system. And it's always been my intuition after reading Teilhard de Chardin that when the noosphere, this global brain, gets infused with enough love, oneness, and creativity, that it shifts the collective field of consciousness on Earth toward oneness, wholeness, and collectivity. And if it's going to be possible to make a shift in time to avoid the disasters foreseen happening quickly, like the greatest hurricane in the history of the world hitting the western coast of Mexico while we're here, a very unpredictable level of events happening. We don't know how much time we have. It seems to me absolutely essential to do something that collapses time by bringing separate parts together to make a whole. And I think that this is possible. This is what we're doing. And the Amplifield with Todd Goldfarb is a wonderful tool to hasten the field phenomenon of what we're feeling as well as the action. Thank you.
So to the listener, what you're encountering here is the transformation from the philosophy and the spirituality of oneness to the structural empowerment of this oneness reality within the community of humanity. And
exactly.
That's what every listener can be a part of. It's one thing, I know you all bring your heart to oneness, or you probably wouldn't be enrolled over 60,000 in this one humanities oneness day, a global oneness day. And what the various panelists are suggesting to us is for each one of us to look at where am I on the wheel of co-creation? What are my gifts, and where has my path of life taken me in my expression? And then once you identify where you are on the wheel of co-creation, then there's the invitation to not only get involved in that sector with a consciousness of oneness, but to link with the entire wheel and all of the arenas of expression and create a synergy there, because that's bringing oneness into a greater expression. And as they've been saying to us, it lifts up our actions to an entirely higher level and affects this collective consciousness we're a part of. Anybody want to dive in here and add their thoughts about this?
Well, you know, if nature takes jumps, it's punctuated equilibrium. It's not just a smooth evolutionary change. Nature takes jumps. We're in a jump, and what's very new for humanity, even for planet Earth, is that a species that could render itself extinct knows that it's doing it by some of its own actions, such as pollution and so forth. That is the greatest consciousness wake-up call that a species as a whole has ever had. And I'd like to just frame the crises that we're facing as evolutionary drivers to what all of us have been saying is already so. We're one, we're whole, we're connected. But socially, that has not been true. We are siloed. And every single structure of society, whether it be government or health or religion, tends to be in silos, not even just bad, but separated. And some of it is really dangerous separation. So when we say we're going to social evolution through social synergy, we're really making a contribution, I think, which will be the evolution of democracy toward a synergistic democracy, not by trying to change the win-lose form of liberal democracy, but by doing what Bucky Fuller says, making designs that are attractive. And if this design is attractive, it's non-political, then it will affect every single sector of the wheel on their own, without us having to try to change government, change spirituality. No, make examples of that which is already changing. And the thing that has struck me, there is so much that's already changing. Our crisis is a birth, and millions of us know something is dying and something new is being born. So I would like to, and it sounds like a little bit outrageous, but I believe that by connecting what's creative in this structure or other similar structures that work can make the difference from a devolutionary scenario to an evolutionary scenario. I think it is seminal and necessary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else care to get a word in edgewise here?
This is Barbara Fields, or B2. And Roger, do you remember when AT&T led the Awakened World Conference in Rome and Florence in 2012 called Engage Spirituality for the 21st Century? Of course you remember. We had
Absolutely.
a great time there.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, we looked at kind of a strategic way. The wheel, of course, the wheel of co-creation is our preeminent example of a model. But we looked at 4 domains of society, reconciling with the other, which had to do with interfaith and intercultural differences. We looked at transforming society, all issues around poverty and gender inequity and social justice and human rights. We looked at embracing the Earth family, which of course was all around the environment, ecology, equitable distribution of resources, how to live as a planetary community on the Earth. And we looked at rediscovering the sacred, which is basically our conversation today. How do we find reverence for the sacred in everything, regardless of the differences that we may experience as different cultures, different lifestyles on the planet? And what we found is that the good news is that within each of these sectors, which correspond closely to the wheel of co-creation, but in a different way, we've combined areas rather than separated them into 12 sectors. We found that there were different stages that you could point to in our society right now that gave us systematic evidence of the way that things were evolving. And the first stage in all these domains that I just mentioned was that of signs of change. It was asking the question, what is happening that's an anomaly? What are the odd but very positive things that are popping up in the status quo that seem to be changing things, that ways of practice and ways of being that we've always just taken for granted. And the second stage was systemic shift, which meant what's going on in our social institutions that convince us that these signs of change are not just anomalies or exceptions to the rule, but they're really signs of a trend that's here to stay and isn't going away anytime soon. The third stage was very important. It was the stage of engagement, which is, of course, we realize that all the sectors of the wheel are important contributors, but when you start to unpack what that really means, you see that it's leadership and decision makers in many of those sectors that are still calling the shots. They have the power and the resources to make policy and determine practices in our society that are very difficult for the mass grassroots populations to influence in any systematic way. But we now see that through social media and the internet that grassroots engagement can be a real contributor to the way that the system shifts at the top. So that's a very important point that I wanted to make. And the final stage that we looked at was the stage of embodiment, which says, not in the very, very distant future, because as B1 just pointed out, with some of what's going on the planet, we're not sure what the distant future looks like. But in the near future, what does it look like when we're living according to these new principles? That's where new thought brings vision into the picture. What you can envision is what you can create. So if we really embodied change, what would our society look like from the very grassroots activist population all the way up to the decision makers?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a very powerful process, and I think that it can add dynamically to empowering the wheel of co-creation. And again, I just remind everybody that it's looking for signs of change. And you know, right now we're a part of, at least in the United States, what gets broadcast is really controlled by major corporations that are really determining the trends of awareness by virtue of what gets advertised. But nonetheless, we who are on a path of oneness can start looking for how this is cropping up in the various sectors of the wheel and in our own lives, the signs of change, those anomalies you speak of, and how it is beginning to affect the social systems, and we shouldn't underestimate the power of that. And then how we can, at a grassroots level, through our heightened awareness in our sectors, in our sharing with the other aspects of the sectors, in our prayer work, in our interactions, how we can take our vision of what's possible into our hearts and then into the world. That is a very powerful model that can support what's going on. E1, do you want to speak to that? Barbara, Marks Hubbard, if you would respond to what Barbara
Yes.
Fields has shared.
Yes. Oh, I think it's naturally true that these gradations of involvement are true in every sector of the wheel. And one of the reasons I like to use the sectors is that there's a visible social form here that everybody in any scale community from small to global can identify with. And here's the big thing. You can then begin to integrate what people are doing in these various sectors all the way on up to a global scale. And if we have the right media, we can begin actually to get a genuine picture of the emerging world already in our midst. And this would be shockingly exciting because the news does not tell it to us.
That's right.
The government does not tell it. The universities don't tell it. Most churches, the New Thought is quite unusual in this respect, do not tell us, so that the average person doesn't know. And we have created a temporary website called Global Co-Creation for anybody that would like to be kept informed about the development of the Wheel of Co-Creation effort. Global, co-creation. And we're saying that we believe we're part of a vast movement of co-creation with multiple sources. But if you take an overview perspective, like the astronauts did to see planet Earth, you take an overview perspective on planet Earth as a living system, you will see this rising tide. And as a storyteller of this, and one thing we learned, it's really important to have a new story to tell. This is the new story. Our crisis is the birth, and we are born, and we are showing up as an emerging, co-creative, loving humanity, creative and innovative to make a future equal to our potential. There's the news. And I'm going to turn this to Juan Carlos for a moment, who's trying to get Amplified up.
Okay. Yes. Yes, we have a community of people right now. I posted the website. Amplified is app.amplified, amplifield.com. It is just like it is showing us how all of these coherence and collective actions are happening. It is just like a way to see how the world is connected, and this is the new type of platforms, online platforms that are emerging, and will be enabling all of us to see how people do what each one of us is doing, and in that way we will be able to find this, not only the anomalies of the system, but as Barbara says, the anomalies will lead us to find the golden innovations that are taking the system to evolve. And this is what we are aiming for, to combine our talent and connect it to our spiritual capacities, but in action. And these new tools are bringing us into a new scope to be able to see us as a social collective body.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Anna Marie, you had wanted to chime in here.
So what I wanted to say, Barbara, I'm always, Barbara one, I'm always drawn to think about your story where you share that a number of years ago where you visited with Eisenhower and you asked him what are the powers that we can use to apply in a positive way to make a real difference and to create a new world. And looking at what you're sharing about what we're doing with the wheel of co-creation, you always you always inspire me. When I listen to this, we are attracted to this, and it all sounds so simple, but in a way, it's also not. But maybe if we speak about the powers that we have, certainly our powers is, and this is what we have created as human beings, is the power of the technology and our communication today. So I'm thinking about a video that I saw about the Mayans one day, and what they were trying to indicate is that, and what they were saying is that we are on track, is that we have brought ourselves here and we are really on track. Would you like to share a little bit about, my view and my question about this, looking at what we're discussing?
About the Mayans? I'm not sure that exactly.
Yes. About the Mayans saying that we are on track. When we have brought ourselves as human beings, if we see the power of technology and communication.
Well, I think, Anne-Marie, that it is our new nervous system. And just like a newborn baby, it's a very good image. The baby is born, first of all, and it doesn't know it's born. And it's panicked, and it's afraid. And then it has to breathe together, which is what we're trying to do now. Even with Amplified, we're trying to breathe together. And when we breathe together, the nervous system that's already there, let's say Facebook with 1 billion people on it, that's 1/7 of the human race in one day on one site. That means that we're given a nervous system that could very quickly become coherent with a shared thought form and a shared pattern. And if I had to think of one thing that could make a difference quickly, it would be that. to get the nervous system coherent with all the messages of all the people anywhere on Earth that's filled with love, creativity, and innovation, and the slightest system of self-organizing. Now, I'm actually watching Amplifield, and I'm seeing lots of lights going on and lots of circles around, and the planet is lighting up through all of us. Now, this is very beautiful to watch. I hope other people can see it.
That's amazing. So that, you know, that is the power that we have that you were talking about right back a number of years ago.
And it's all live. This is another thing about the Wheel of Co-Creation that we just came from. It's live. And it was recorded, it must have reached 80,000 people through the live streaming here from here in Mexico. And think of how many people this is reaching and how many they can reach. And the networks are networked. You know, they used to say we're only 6 people apart from anyone in the world. I think it's probably less than 6 people apart right now. We can probably reach almost everybody in the world very, very quickly if the news is interesting enough.
Yeah, it's incredible. I visited that website a little bit earlier today as well, and it is astonishing to see, you know, what we are capable of, and that we can use these powers and apply it in a positive way.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I'm just really thrilled. I'm watching Amplify. It's marvelous. See it? Oh my God, it's turning white.
Yes, incredible.
And I just want to add something else to this. Let's not confuse that the internet is connecting us to our minds, but it is also the door to the internet. It's the door to the moment and to the process of connecting our hearts. This new generation of tools that are coming are connecting one heart. This is not connecting the global mind, but it is connecting the global heart. And from there is when the shift of consciousness will come, when we connect into our hearts, tapping into a higher level of consciousness. Yeah, and from there we will be able to properly.
Yes, almost as if this tool makes it possible for us, you know, it's like we have our radars out, we're sending our energy out, and, you know, we are able to pick up on one another and to connect with one another and to co-create together. So it's really, I'm really impressed. It's really phenomenal to watch this live.
And Marie, I think that we should do it during our global, regular global calls.
Yes, great idea.
And they can be watching the effect of the call in the amplifield of resonance on the inner plane. And by doing that, we're actually making the exact immediate connection that Juan Carlos is speaking of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know what, this really makes, yeah?
Go ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
So what I wanted to say is through this we can actually see, I was talking about, you know, when you look at this, it all sounds wonderful and everything, but how do we really make this happen? And when you look at this amplified, we can actually see this happening in real life. And that makes it tangible and it makes it doable.
It does. And Claudia Wells, who's worked with Heart Math, has said that they're going to create a peace room on Amplifield, so that we can cluster there to all of us. And that would bring into form the vision of a peace room as sophisticated as a war room that I ran for vice president on in the Democratic National Convention.
Now, just for the listener, what they're speaking about is the website Amplifield, A-M-P-L-I.
Amplifield, yes, not amplified, amplifield.com.
Right, Amplifield. And so that's a beautiful metaphor for us to see that awakening is happening no matter what we hear. We're down to some last minutes. Who else would like to
I have one last thing I forgot to say. Anyone who would like to be on a bi-weekly phone call called Global Communion with me to amplify the resonant field with Amplifield, then please go to evolve.org, my website, and you can click onto Global Communion. It'll be free of charge every other Sunday. Thank you.
And this is Anna Marie again. For those who are not aware of our Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life monthly calls, please do watch out for these. We do it once a month, as I say, the second Thursday of every month. We have been able to attract the most incredible speakers and people who make a real difference in these different spheres of life, and sharing, what's happening, so we're able to witness what's happening and to tap into that and to co-create together. So watch out for that and please participate in those.
Another thing that we're working on, Anne-Marie, is a simple booklet where people can do their own wheels of co-creation locally if they so choose and connect up with others, because it's just like having a gathering on a Saturday afternoon, and or you can do it in a church. You just bring people from different sectors to share their goals and resources, and it works easily.
Oh, great! That's awesome, Barbara. Because I think those are the small things that that makes all of this tangible, and that makes it possible for people to take it into the community. So I know that in humanity's team, people have always started speaking about placing the wheel on the ground, but we have not really had any knowing of how this really works, and this is why the work that you're all doing, that as it becomes available through a movement such as humanity's team, we are able to take it to the world at large. So thank you so much for that. We'll definitely be looking out for it.
Roger, this is Barbara Fields. It just occurred to me that there might be some work possibly that AG&T and Humanities Team and other groups could do. When I envision a process by which it wouldn't be hard to bring together people who, say, are part of the amplifield, the people who are listening in on this call today and who are very familiar with the language of oneness and unity, conscious evolution, and the whole movement that we've been talking about today. And I can envision a process by which those people could form relationships either through formal gatherings or just informal one-on-one relationships with the people around the world that we are associated with, say through the Parliament of Religions and other groups that we would think of as more conservative or not as familiar with this language and this vision, and to start conversations where the culture of oneness and unity, very, very adept with the internet, very familiar with this kind of a conversation, could actually be in conversations with others in the world, the other part of the large population of the world, that was just coming into the understanding for the first time of such ideas, so that there could be a cross-pollination of ideas rather than the feeling that we're already just speaking to the choir but not reaching others who aren't necessarily sharing this viewpoint but might if they were exposed to it.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I think
there are 207 people on now on Amplifield from our request just now.
Amazing. During our previous call, everyone, we were having the same kind of question. We touched on this discussion as well. And thank you for raising this important point, Barbara. We were on call with John Thomas, who is a colleague of the Humanities Team, colleague of mine, and what he speaks about in this community is heart circles. So, we have different terminology for what's happening here. It's in a basic way where we gather as a community, what they're talking about, what they're doing where they live, together with these wives and people of the area, is they get together in heart circles. And he will also be making available a booklet or something explaining what it is that they do in their communities that enables people to come together.
So as we move into our final 5 minutes, I think it'd be good for us to summarize for the listeners what we can all do to magnify this, to move the conversation more toward a tipping point or the critical mass that is available to us. And I want to reiterate what you said, Barbara Fields, that there are resources available through Association for Global New Thought and other entities for individuals to become more thoroughly grounded in the awareness of oneness, and then allowing that to guide them forward. Then there's what Barbara Marx Hubbard has encouraged us to do, and that is identify our place on the wheel and not only express our oneness awareness and initiatives in that field, but then find ways to interconnect and link with others in the other sectors of the wheel. And thus that synergy can begin to happen that makes our efforts far more productive. And then another thing that has been said on the call, precious listeners, is that as we witness deterioration and crisis, that we have an opportunity through our awareness of oneness to, first of all, bring a heart of compassion to it, because it's an old system having its dying breaths. We can bring compassion there. We can practice whatever form of prayer we have embraced and anchor a sense of oneness. We can take responsible and compassionate action, and then we can communicate. We can use our social media. We can use the various websites that are available to begin to affect the noosphere, the idea sphere, and begin to shift the nervous system. Every one of us can be a part of that. Every one of us.
Right.
Anyone else want to add a practical tip for our listeners?
Well, just check into evolve.org and click on Global Communion, because we'll keep amplifying this field with Amplifield.
Very good. Some final words, Barbara Marx Hubbard?
Oh, just thank you, Roger, and all of Global Oneness, and Steve Farrell for putting this together, and Marie, because I think you're doing such a great service, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
At any rate, let us just remember that something is happening, even when it appears most like it's not. And if we can hold that vision and do our personal part and link in and let the synergy begin to unfold through us, we'll see the results. And more great things are happening than ever get broadcast, and we can start sharing those, and we can be a part of this upliftment of humanity. So I thank all of the panelists, their heart, their lifelong, in many cases, efforts for the good of humanity. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Barbara Marx Hubbard, Barbara Fields, Anna Marie Petirce, and Juan Carlos Caton. I've really enjoyed my hour with you. It's been so enriching and so powerful in Global Oneness Day. You're very welcome. Yes, all of you listening by phone, webcast, playback, please leave any aha moments or inspirations on the Oneness in 12 Spheres event page on the Global Oneness Day site. There's a place where you can comment on that site. So next up, join Ken Wilber and Steve Farrell for a keynote interview where Ken will describe an integral approach, a theory of everything based on our oneness with the divine that helps enrich people's lives and a more compassionate and sustainable future. I think you'll enjoy this program, so please stay tuned. And before we begin, we're going to be silent for 10 seconds to center ourselves in oneness with the divine and each other. We call this a oneness moment.